Okay, hello everybody. Thanks those of you that are joining us here for a very special live stream. I'm going to give everybody just a few seconds here to kind of get in right before we get started, but super cool, unique thing I get to do, joined by Professor Ari Juels today talking about his new book. So we'll give everybody just about 30 seconds to get in here and then we will get started. I hope everybody's having a great day. I know some of you were able to join Ari in New York City a couple of days ago, which was a pretty cool thing to see. I'm sure some of you saw that on Twitter. And just to give you a heads up, he is going to be at some other places as well. So we're going to be dropping in some links throughout kind of the stream. If you want to find out, wow, I'd love to try to get the book signed, or where can I get the book, or things like that, or more information, we're going to be dropping those. But www.oraclenovel.com is a great site to go ahead and check out right now as we're sort of waiting. Tells you a little bit about the book, tells you a little bit about Ari if you're unfamiliar with it, along with the events kind of tab at the top. If you click on that, that'll show you a lot of the things that's upcoming. Ari's very, very busy over the next little while. So my guess is he will be somewhere probably near you in the next month or two. He's also going to East Denver, which for those of you that are going to that, I think it's going to be a super cool experience. All right, so we're basically going to go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this Chainlink Livestream Fireside Chat. My name is Rory, and I'm the Director of Community for Chainlink Labs. And today we're joined by somebody very special, Professor Ari Juels. He's a professor at Cornell Tech. He's a co-director of IC3, the chief scientist of Chainlink Labs, and now, on top of that, the author of The Oracle. So if you're not familiar with Ari's work in blockchain or many of his other accomplishments, again, please feel free to check out arijuels.com if you want to kind of deep dive into Ari. But if you want to find out more about how you can meet Ari in person and check out some more information about this really cool book here, visit www.oraclenovel.com and click on the events tab. Just a few quick highlights of some of Ari's previous work. Again, if you're not familiar, he was the chief scientist of RSA, the director of RSA Laboratories, a distinguished engineer at EMC, which is now Dell EMC, where he worked until 2013. He received his PhD in computer science from UC Berkeley. And last but not least, he is the author of well over 100 widely cited and influential research publications, one of which, you know, the Chainlink white paper. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that as well. So as a quick reminder before we get started, just please click the like and subscribe button, you know, to ensure you're informed of all these types of events and content that we'll have in the future. So without further ado, I just want to, again, introduce Professor Ari Juels. Ari, anything else you want to add before we get started?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting me here, Rory, and to say how delighted I am to have an opportunity to share my story with our community, with the Chainlink community. You're the community who understands why oracles are so important and interesting. And that's a big part of my novel, and it will be, of course, a big part of our discussion today.
Awesome. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started with question number one. So you just released your new book called The Oracle. What is The Oracle about?
Yeah, The Oracle is about a software developer who works at a company that builds Oracle systems. And he's targeted by what the novel refers to as a rogue smart contract. In this case, it's a contract that's offering a bounty, a monetary reward, in cryptocurrency, of course, to kill the hero. And because smart contracts in principle can't be terminated, the hero's confronting an unstoppable force. And that, of course, is what makes the book a thriller novel. To be clear, you know, you can't create a rogue smart contract of that type today. That's what makes the book science fiction. But the book is also a cautionary tale, because what happens in the book is technically possible. And in particular, the advances in AI, it's something we need to contemplate in the not too distant future. And I'm sure that's something we'll talk about today. The book is called The Oracle, by the way, because it's not just about blockchain oracles, but also about the Oracle of Delphi.
Yeah, you just talked about that, kind of the Oracle Delphi. Is that sort of the inspiration for the book, or what kind of drove you to write something like this?
Well, really, there were two inspirations. As I like to say, a paper and a bridge. The paper was a research publication I co-authored in 2015. It appeared in publication in 2016. And it explored the concept of rogue smart contracts. That's to say, smart contracts used for criminal purposes. That's part of the novel. So the novel, in a sense, is a dramatization of that paper. The bridge is a sky bridge in Chelsea, New York. I used to commute on the High Line, this kind of elevated, one-dimensional park, old elevated railway. And I would pass this wonderful sky bridge, this pedestrian bridge connecting two buildings there. And it's a lovely thing. It's an Art Deco structure. And I used to think to myself, this would be the perfect office. It has windows on both sides. It overlooks a street, the thick of Manhattan. And then one day, the hero just sort of appeared in my imagination, sitting on the bridge, sitting in this office. And that was the genesis of the novel. That bridge now exists. It spans buildings owned by Google. So I'm hoping in like 3 to 5 years, when Chainlink Labs acquires Google, that Sergey will set up an office for me there. In the meantime, just this afternoon, I was in touch with a colleague at Google who's going to go on an expedition with me to try to enter this bridge from the inside. But those were the two inspirations for the book.
Awesome. Well, that would be great. And I definitely love to have an office. I work from home now, but I definitely would love to have an office there as well. So moving on to kind of question number 2, really. So there is a coin kind of on the cover of this book. There we go, that people can see. And a few coins are really featured in the story itself. So what is the importance of kind of these ancient Greek coins in the Oracle?
Yeah, ancient Greek coins have a kind of cameo role in the novel, if you will. And that's because they were basically the mass media of the ancient world. Right? And they're one of the richest and most widely preserved sources of history for that period of time. So I don't know about others here, but I used to walk into a museum and just ignore the ancient coin collections. But after writing this book, I've become a little obsessive about coins. And so now when I walk into a museum, I will actually look at the collection of ancient Greek coins, if there is one. The artwork on the cover incorporates a very special ancient Greek coin. There are so many bits of history packed into this one exquisite little gold coin that is actually just about the size of a dime. So this coin in particular was first issued by a Macedonian king by the name of Philip II. And on the obverse, the head side, the side that's shown on the cover of the book, is a portrait of the god Apollo. Apollo is the main patron god of the Oracle of Delphi. And this coin is commemorating a victory in battle by Philip II over a group of local Greeks who had besieged the Oracle of Delphi. So the coin is a celebration of Philip's liberation of Delphi during this siege. Philip actually instructed his troops in the battle to wear a laurel wreath. This is a symbol associated with the god Apollo. And you can see, just barely make out on the cover there, a laurel wreath on Apollo's head. So this was, as I said, a celebration of Philip's liberation of Delphi, and it was also a way to burnish his credentials as a Greek. So he was really Macedonian. But Philip is better known for something else. He's known for being the father of Alexander the Great. And this particular coin was probably minted just a couple of years after the death of Alexander the Great. And it's widely believed that the portrait of Apollo here is actually a near lifetime portrait of Alexander the Great himself. So there's a lot more to say about this coin, but I love it because when you look at this coin, you're not just seeing a shiny piece of gold. You're seeing the history of Delphi, the image of a god, a portrait of the greatest conqueror in the history of the world, and also this miniature Greek sculpture of incomparable beauty.
Well, that's well, you just released a lot of kind of facts there about these coins, and I think the other side was cool. It's like a computer chip, kind of on the other side as well, which sort of I think definitely sort of matches that kind of the Oracle of Delphi, which is in the book, and obviously kind of modern day sort of blockchain technology and computer software.
Yeah, the ancient Greek coin morphs into what's supposed to represent a cryptocurrency coin.
Very, very cool. And I remember way back in the day, people would actually make like Bitcoin, coins and things like that.
Yes,
So that
yes,
was
and
one
they
of the
look
first
just
way.
like that.
Yep, exactly. Very cool. Well, so those were some facts. What I'm sure as you were writing this, it sounds like you did some research and some things like that. What are some more interesting kind of research facts or things you kind of came across as you were writing this book?
Well, the most interesting thing to me was to learn just how significant oracles have been historically, and especially, of course, the Oracle of Delphi. I didn't really appreciate the towering role it had in the history of Greece until I started doing research for this book. And I didn't realize, for instance, that it played a role in helping establish democracy in Athens. And of course, we are all heirs to that particular democracy, one of the very first democracies. So that was one really interesting thing I learned. A second thing I learned was just how inconceivably strange the Oracle of Delphi was. Right. Ancient Greece was, for the most part, a patriarchal society. But one of the most powerful people in Greece was the priestess. There were at certain times three priestesses. Priestess at the Oracle of Delphi. Ancient Greece is a place we sort of think of as the cradle of reason because it's where Western philosophy first developed. But the prophecies at Delphi, which were believed to come directly from the god Apollo, were uttered by the priestess. And we now believe that the priestess was delivering her prophecies while basically she was high. So Delphi sits at the intersection of two fault lines. This is something that's been discovered only in recent decades. And these hydrocarbons, gases, percolate up from under the earth. And one of those gases, ethylene, has a hallucinogenic effect. And it's now believed that the priestess was inhaling ethylene at the time that she was delivering her prophecies. History just doesn't get any weirder and more fascinating than that.
I mean, to think I'm sure there were kings and who knows who else went up there and asked questions about should I do X or should I do Y, and to think about a lot of those decisions back then were probably based on the input received from this oracle. So it's pretty incredible that even back then it was kind of determining sort of fate or the future, and very much so kind of in modern technology it's sort of delivering that information, which also allows people to kind of see what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, her prophecies shape the destinies of nations. Yeah, no question.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Well, this is a work of science fiction. You mentioned that earlier. So what are some of your other favorite works of science fiction, and how have they kind of inspired your research and your writing?
Yeah, strangely, I'm not a huge science fiction fan. It's not that I dislike it, it's just not a genre I really gravitate toward. I kind of prefer fiction that incorporates different genres, maybe with an element of science fiction. One of my favorite authors, for instance, is David Mitchell. He's best known for writing Cloud Atlas, but he's written a bunch of other novels. And his works incorporate science fiction and magic realism and all kinds of other stuff. And similarly, the Oracle it's near future science fiction, but it does incorporate other genres or elements. For example, there's a touch of magic realism. It's a thriller, of course, and so on and so forth. That said, I have been reading some science fiction recently. For instance, I've been reading Lawrence Moroney's Legend of the Locust. It's actually a young adult science fiction series, but it's just delightful. It's fun to read. And I would say, the one science fiction author that I've perhaps drawn some inspiration from rather, or been influenced by to some extent, is Cixin Liu, the Chinese science fiction author of the Three Body Problem trilogy. And his works incorporate elements of real science. That's something that I do in the Oracle. But more importantly, he manages to shift the reader's perception of reality in a way that really sticks with you. It feels like a philosophical revelation. And if I can accomplish that even in a small degree with the Oracle, with my readers, I would be very happy.
Great. Well, I think I definitely think from what I've read, that's what's happening there. And again, if you haven't read it or haven't seen it or haven't, you can definitely check it out. Again, oraclenovel.com is a website you can check out. It also says where you can get it. I ordered mine from Amazon. I pre-ordered it, came here like the day it was released. So that's always pretty cool to sort of have that. And as I mentioned before previously, there's other events that Ari's going to, that you can also likely pick up the book and potentially have him, sign it for you, which is pretty special for those of you that want to do that. So kind of moving on to our next question here. Ancient Greek history, mythology, and blockchains are pretty different subjects. What really made you kind of decide to combine sort of all of these worlds together in this book?
Well, I've always had an interest in fusing science with the humanities. In college, for instance, I was a double major. I majored in classics, Latin literature in particular, not Greek, and mathematics. There was no computer science major at my college at the time I went to college, in fact. But a key reason for incorporating both in this novel is oracles, right? Oracles are the common theme. People down through the ages have sought authoritative sources of truth, right? It's something that we do today. Like the truth feels especially fragile in our times because of the political tensions that have resulted in what some refer to as the age of lies because of generative AI and so on and so forth. And when we look to ancient history, I feel that we get a better understanding even of our contemporary quest for truth. For example, the Oracle of Delphi wasn't just a fountainhead of truth. It also served an important social purpose. It helped establish social consensus within the communities of ancient Greece. When a city, for instance, had a major decision to make, a decision to make of major political importance, sometimes life and death importance, it would often send an embassy to the Oracle of Delphi to get an answer. And the community could coalesce around this answer, would treat it as authoritative. So at its best, the Oracle of Delphi could serve as a vehicle for consensus building and maintaining the peace, maintaining stability, and as a mediator. Now, social consensus or mediation would obviously be a huge ambition for the Oracle systems we're building today, but the Oracle's hero is basically an Oracle maximalist, and we should keep high ambitions in mind. So why not think about these things and incorporate them into the novel? And they're there implicitly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you just mentioned a little bit about AI. So I want to kind of, next couple of questions are going to be focused on that. You mentioned a little bit, I know at the beginning of this talk, kind of the Oracle is sort of a cautionary tale about AI in blockchains. In what sense is that true or represented in this book?
Yeah, it's definitely a cautionary tale about, in particular, the risk of combining blockchains and AI in a haphazard manner, right? So I've mentioned the rogue contract that's targeting the hero of the novel. How does it work? I won't get into details. The book explains exactly how the rogue contract works, but in summary, an AI tool has to interpret news articles to determine when the crime has happened, who is responsible for it, and therefore should be awarded a bounty, and so on and so forth. When I first started writing the book, this type of scenario seemed quite far off. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be 2 decades until we had AI tools that could extract keywords from news articles. But then as I was writing the book, actually toward the end of the writing process, ChatGPT dropped, and boom, suddenly this possibility was looming large. And this book, which might have been a year 2040 piece of science fiction, or projecting into the year 2040, became a piece of near future science fiction. So the book is a cautionary tale. I mean, I want to emphasize that you cannot construct a rogue smart contract today. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. But it could well be possible in the near future when people start incorporating AI tools like LLMs into oracles and other parts of blockchain systems. So I really hope that the novel will serve as an effective cautionary tale to warn people that we need to be careful when combining AI and blockchains. And happily, I can say that my colleagues in academia and also in industry, at Chainlink in particular, are taking the risk pretty seriously. I've had some very good discussions, in particular with our chief product officer, Kamal, who was responsible for TensorFlow at Google for some time, and therefore understands machine learning quite deeply. So in short, I hope that the topic of the book will remain the stuff of thriller novels. And I think that if we as a community are thoughtful about the way that we bring these two technologies together, that it will.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I know that's something that's on a lot of people's minds. We were having a discussion, kind of just various team members of us about people that feel like, AI maximalists, like the individual in the book. And then, there's some people that are the opposite, they want to basically pause everything and kind of, really be mindful about how it moves forward. And I think probably most people who are probably somewhere in the middle, where maybe AI is not directly impacting their world today, but it sounds like in the very near future it could. So building on that, if you were to put on your Oracle hat, if you're the Oracle, what do you think this convergence of blockchains and AI is actually ultimately going to look like at some point in the future?
Yeah, that's hard to say, but I can say in general that I think the convergence of AI and blockchains will be a good thing, assuming that we responsibly manage the risks. And one of the reasons has to do with smart contracts and their strengths and weaknesses. Right? Smart contracts, as we all know, are code that runs on blockchains. And the nice thing about code, as opposed to human languages, is that it can be unambiguous. Right? Smart contracts can enforce unambiguous agreements between and among people, and that's basically what they do today. The problem is that in the real world, people don't reason in terms of code, and we in fact are accustomed to ambiguity. We require some degree of ambiguity in our lives because natural language is ambiguous. Right? And this is where AI can come into play, and LLMs in particular, like ChatGPT. Right? LLMs can act as a kind of interface or translator between human language and the way that humans conceptualize the world and blockchain systems and smart contracts in particular. So for example, if we want a smart contract to take advantage of our existing legal codes, which are of course written documents, right? They're going to need LLMs to act as translators. Now, there are a lot of problems, technical problems or challenges involved in incorporating LLMs into blockchain systems or using them elsewhere. The two biggest are hallucinations. Anyone who's used ChatGPT knows that sometimes it will just make stuff up, right? Hallucinations. And also adversarial inputs. People can intentionally craft inputs to fool LLMs and other machine learning models. And these are pretty formidable obstacles in the deployment of machine learning models. But assuming we can overcome these, and I think that we will in one way or another overcome them, I think there'll be a very powerful tool in smart contract systems and greatly expand the scope of smart contracts.
All right. Well, I've kind of consider myself, sort of a blockchain maximalist. I don't think too many people should be shocked by that, considering where I work and what I do. But the question that's kind of always been hot on my mind: is there a world where blockchains, can actually prevent AI or save us from kind of this sort of AI taking over scenario?
Yeah, I don't know that they can do that in a very general and expansive way, but one of the morals of the novel, if we take a step back, is the following. People are worried about AI agents escaping their confines and impacting the real world in harmful ways, right? We're all familiar with the scenario where an AI agent seizes control of a weapon system, for instance, right, and starts killing people. That's kind of the extreme nightmare scenario. But what people often don't recognize is that the financial system is a potential vector of escape,
Mm.
that the financial system has an impact on the tangible world. And so what you can loosely think of the scenario in the Oracle as a kind of escape, the escape of an AI agent into the financial system. That's not exactly what's happening, but that's roughly what's happening. So the question is, where and how can we enforce safeguards against rogue uses of the financial system by AI agents anywhere? That has to happen at the point of intersection between AI systems and financial systems. Right? In the case of blockchain systems, it's the gatekeepers that will need to enforce AI safety. And what system is acting as the gatekeeper? Well, an oracle. So I see real potential for developing guardrails in oracle systems that can address at least this particular threat of AI escapes through the financial system. You know, where the financial system is making use of blockchain technologies that allow oracles to play that particular role.
All right, that's awesome. Well, that's a use case. You know, we have a pretty famous 77 use cases blog, and now I feel like we can change it to 78.
78.
Exactly, which I'm excited about. So we'll kind of pivot a little bit from sort of, you know, is AI going to take over the world? Talk to sort of, are there any, you know, kind of unusual or funny anecdotes that sort of happened while you were writing the novel, maybe that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I mentioned as I was writing the novel, Chat GPT just sort of dropped on my head, and this is toward the end of my writing the novel. Well, in the book, one of the main characters in the book is an FBI agent art historian named Diane. And in the book, she gives this little speech to the book's hero about the importance of AI and how it can become a conduit for reviving the voices of forgotten gods, and so on and so forth. And the book's hero, who's a technologist, as I said, is a developer at a company that builds Oracle systems, just poo-poos her ignorance and says, it's going to be years and years before AI can do any of the stuff that you're talking about. Well, when Chat GPT dropped, it completely blindsided me the way it blindsided other people.
Yeah.
And I just found it funny that the technologist was completely wrong here. And it was the art historian who had actually made a correct guess about the potential impact of AI in our lives in the near future. So Huffy technologist lost, art historian won.
Yeah, it's difficult to predict the future. I think there's a classic saying, you know, everyone overestimates what they can do in 2 years, but underestimates in 10. And I feel that that's kind of sort of the world that we live in these days, where I heard people talking about ChatGPT, you know, a few years ago, and hey, this is going to be interesting, but that was it, right? It was an article or two that I'd come across, and then all of a sudden, you know, it hits, and everyone in our org is like, oh, hey, I'm using it to help write agendas, I'm using it to do this, we're planning an event somewhere, we've actually using it to help plan this event, which was pretty amazing. We literally went from 0 to kind of 100 kind of overnight.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned this famous, you know, ancient Greek maxim, know thyself, in your book. Where does that come from?
There were several maxims actually inscribed, we believe, near the entrance of in the entrance, I should say, of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, in the main religious sanctuary there. And the one that most people have heard of is know thyself. Now, a lot of people think that it was Plato who first uttered this, but it comes from the Oracle of Delphi. And there were actually a few maxims inscribed in the entrance to the temple. Another one that you may have come across is nothing in excess, which is a simple piece of wisdom and a good idea when it comes to everything from eating ice cream to using your iPhone. But in fact, there were dozens of short sayings called Delphic maxims associated in one way or another with the Oracle of Delphi and with the Temple of Apollo there. And many of them are just small tidbits of wisdom, like nothing in excess. Be kind to your friends, listen to everyone, and so on and so forth. Some of them are pretty obscure, like there's one master wedding feasts. I'm not sure there's anyone alive today who has any idea what that was all about. But Know Thyself is a particularly interesting one. It was in the ancient world attributed either to the god Apollo or to the famous 7 sages of Greece. And its meaning is unclear, and I think it's become famous because the, let's say, ambiguous, hard to pin down wisdom in this maxim is so appealing. So philosophers and religious scholars and poets down through the ages have alluded to this particular maxim.
Very cool. Well, I didn't realize there were kind of that many there. So master wedding feasts.
Master wedding feasts. No clue.
All right.
No clue what that means.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have to do more research into that. So speaking of research, how long did it take to write this book, The Oracle?
This is actually my second book. I wrote a first science fiction book called Tetractus, which was a painful birth. I can't think of any other way to put it. Yeah. It took me about 10 years to write. And in the end, I feel I made some mistakes with it. I feel that it's a good book, but it could have been more polished. And was kicking myself enough so that it took me a while to embark on the writing of a second novel. But the Oracle was in some sense just crying out to be written. And I, in fact, wrote the bulk of it over the course of basically 2 years. It helped that I had an academic sabbatical. I didn't have teaching or service commitments for a while, so I could spend more time doing 2 things, actually, working on Chainlink projects and also writing the book itself.
All right. Well, you talked about working, doing some Chainlink products. What are you working on at Chainlink Labs right now?
Well, I'm working with others, of course, colleagues in Chainlink Labs on a few different things. One is translating an idea from our V2 white paper called superlinear staking impact into our current staking systems. And this is actually a technically tricky proposition, but I think we're making pretty good progress with it. I'm also working on some new features in CCIP, although I can't yet publicly talk about details. And finally, the book has gotten me thinking seriously about AI safety, and in particular, the role that oracles can take in enforcing it in blockchain systems. This is an area where I really like Chainlink to assume leadership. I think we can potentially assume leadership. Yeah, so those 3 are where I'm spending the bulk of my time with Chainlink these days.
Awesome. Well, I definitely am directly impacted by a few of those, so that'll be fantastic as those developments continue. And for those that don't know, we had a AI symposium last year at SmartCon. That was very popular. I know that Ari was part of that. He mentioned Lawrence Moroney, who was there, who was also part of it as well. So check out those videos if you're interested from SmartCon last year. It was some pretty cool stuff. And I expect that at the next SmartCon, we'll probably have some pretty cool AI stuff, because that's about as hot as it gets in sort of the tech world right now. Well, Ari, I just want to say, thank you so much for joining us and carving out some time for the Chainlink community. If people want to get a hold of this book or want to see where you're going to be at next, or have a chance to see you in person, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to the book website. That's oraclenovel.com and learn anything and everything about the book. So that includes a calendar of events. There's a web page talking about the science in the novel. There's another one talking about the coins. As I said, small obsession. Yep. So anything you want to know about the book, you can find on that website.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. Those that haven't gotten it, go out and grab the Oracle. It's awesome. The one thing we didn't touch on that I really do think it's really cool is I think it's a great tool for really explaining kind of blockchain technology to people that might not be as familiar with it. I think it does a really nice job of kind of breaking down sort of how the technology works early on in the book. And I found that to be very valuable. So I'm always trying to figure out how can I explain to my family members, or how can I explain to other people, or what reference can I say, hey, if you read this, you'll have a much better understanding of the sort of work that I do. And I really think it's actually a great way to sort of introduce people into blockchain technology as well, in a way that makes it fun and accessible. And there's a thriller to it. So in the end, they'll have a great time, but also learn a little bit about why we're kind of doing what we're doing and the value of a lot of the work that Ari's doing and a lot of great other people in our industry.
Yeah, thank you, Rory. I mean, one of my goals is to lure more people into our community, and I hope that the book does that.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. OracleNovel.com. Check that out. You'll see where he's going to be at next. He's going to be at lots of places. He has a very busy schedule. And I look forward to, again, seeing you at some point in the future as well, Ari. Otherwise, good luck with your book. Wish you the best, and looking forward to doing this again when you write your third. So we'll see whenever that happens. All right. Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chainlink community. And we'll see everybody soon again. Thank you. Bye-bye.